Good morning and welcome to New Heaven, New Earth. Last year we did a program with Itzhak Bentov, the Boston-based researcher into the relationship between consciousness and the cosmos, and based upon a book which he wrote called Stalking the Wild Pendulum. This book has since become somewhat of a bestseller among people who are interested in the relationship between consciousness and the cosmos. We wanted to once again get an opportunity this morning to speak with Mr. Bentov. Ben is a wonderful, loving, kind man, brave, courteous, true, all the other kind of things you can say. The interesting thing about him is the evolution of consciousness that he has over the years conducted, research into consciousness. The subtitle of his book is The Mechanics of Consciousness, and what we want to try to talk about today is one aspect of it, and that is the evolution of consciousness. There is probably no theory that has had more impact on Western thinking than the theory of evolution that Darwin came up with in the mid-19th century, and ever since then, all of our thought has been along the ideas that somehow we have evolved as human beings to being who we are today. The question I want to ask you is, where do you see us now in that evolutionary development? We can say that if we take Darwinist theories as being correct, then the evolution of humankind, we know that we have evolved from the apes towards humans, and now we have finally come to a point where we are humanoid in shape, we vertical spines, we are reasonably intelligent, we can push buttons on TV, drive cars, etc., etc. And what I'd like to do, I'd like to draw maybe a little diagram, but don't worry, it's not very scientific. Let me draw what is the bell curve called bell curve, which looks somehow like this. It's being used in describing random events, and the way this works is the following. If we assume now, let us take the following situation. Take a little town that has maybe 1,000 people in it, and we have this great desire to find out what the average height of people in this town is, and therefore we go out with a yardstick and start measuring these people. Well, we find that a very small, very few number of people will be, say, 3 feet tall, and a very, very few of them will be maybe 7 or 8 feet tall. The bulk of the population will be right somewhere here. That is, the average or mean height of these people would be about 5 feet and 6 or 8 and something like this. Okay, so what we find here is that this bell curve gives us a good picture of where most of the population is. That is what typifies population. We can use this diagram also to describe evolution. The bulk of the population today is this intelligent, more or less intelligent biped, all right, and with a vertical spine, and who pushes the buttons on TV and drives a car, etc., etc. Now, there is some back row, that is, there are some people here in this area, very few people who are still gorilla-alike. That is they beat their chest when they see their neighbors and a few other things, and then we have other people who are here in this corner, very few of them who are very highly developed, because we say that evolution is now pushing mankind in this direction away from the gorilla types towards the very highly evolved people. This point we're here. What is going to happen? Maybe 1 million years from now, 500,000 years from now, this curve is going to shift. It's going to shift like this. That is, the bulk of the population will be very, very highly evolved. We have gone away altogether from the gorilla types. No more gorillas. And what we have here now is the average man is now the person in evolutionary terms. The bulk of population is extremely, very, very highly evolved, and the cutting edge of evolution here, these are very, very highly evolved people. We can't even imagine what kind of person that will be. He may not have a physical body at all, of course. The habitat, so to speak, of this group here, well, you just go out and you find them, the habitat, they're all over the place. The habitat of this group here, what do you think you find these people here? That you would find them in universities. You'd find the people who are very bright, people who are in the leading edge of professions, that it's an intellectual thing is. Well, I suggest that you find them in mental hospitals and nap houses, and the reason for that is that these people, they live in a different reality, in a reality which is very changed, and few of them are adapted to live in this reality so naturally they can't function very well. So the only safe place, only good place for them would be the mental hospital, unless they can integrate their different view of reality with their daily lives. Now, if they can integrate it, then we have people like Newton, like Darwin, these are the so-called genius. The thing that I am not certain that we have talked about is what is it that is evolving? Let us put it this way. The nervous system is the thing that is evolving, and the nervous system is supported by a skeleton of bones and muscles and tissue, etc., etc. Now, the nervous system is that thing that gives us the picture of our realities, that is our realities, that reality which you see all around. You, the flowers and the chairs and the microphones and the teacup is given to us by our senses. We don't see light, which is beyond UV and beyond infrared. We hear only a limited scale of vibrations, like, for instance, we hear anywhere from 52 to 20,000. All senses are limited maximum. In other words, all our senses are limited, so with these limited senses we naturally are seeing through a very narrow kind of tube or very narrow slit in the total reality there is MHM. Now, as you're revolving, what happens is that that slit opens up more and more and more, so you see more and more of that reality, and we assume that we see different realities. They're not very different realities, but rather a very extended, broad view of one very large reality. The Bible mentions maybe 4 to 6 colors maximum. Yeah, that is what people saw just a bear maybe 4,000 years ago. Nowadays we see hundreds and thousands of colors. That is, our visual system has evolved. Our fellow mammals like cows and horses see only black and white, so this is one example of the evolution of the nervous system. The senses are an extension of our nervous system. Our eyes, our ears, etc. are an extension of our brain, so speak. Okay, so now, before you were talking about the people who were the mutants either being in the mental hospitals or being geniuses, these are people who have expanded perception and hence they can see a reality which ordinary people at this stage of evolution are not able to see. Correct. What is the nature of that reality which they're able to see? Well, a non-physical reality, that is classified as a non-physical reality. Sometimes we can take an example, say, well, let's take a simple example. The family sitting at dinner table and say they're a kid, maybe 15 years old, 16 years old, and he looks up and suddenly he says to his mother, "Hey, Ma, look at our dead grandmother is standing in the corner." Oh, mother looks around, says, "No, oh, there's no grandmother there," and she says, "Well, kiddo, there's something wrong with you. You need help. You re-crazy. So she takes him off to the friendly neighborhood psychiatrist, and same thing happens. Psychiatrist will ask, "What do you see?" "Well, you see well do." And you see doctor over there in the corn do, and you see this person standing there. Psychiatrist turns down, "No, there's no such thing." Well, then psychiatrist says, "Oh, young fell, you in troubles," and then he writes out a little prescription for a little thorium or electroshock or whatever, and pretty soon, in a matter of 2 weeks, K is back in shape, very normal, no longer sees anything, yeah. So the process has been reversed. This is called a psychotic episode or a schizophrenic break or whatever it is, and what you would say is that there's a good chance that kid has seen very good chance that the kid has a spontaneous opening of his senses, so that the evolution has been rushed up or hurried up, yeah. Now, this actually happens. There are techniques to do this, but the Eastern people, the yogis, have developed systems to do this, to push the nervous system rapidly, but it happens very often, spontaneously, without someone trying to do anything about it, and just happens. And then, naturally, in the olden days, these kinds of things used to be called miracles, yeah. And nowadays, there's no more miracles. Well, let us take this and let us that S interesting is on it because, and you think of, what you call the spontaneous opening of expanded awareness, correct, right? That S sort of a lot of words to say something, but in an earlier time was called a miraculous occurrence, yeah, evaded consciousness, a time of great revelation of God speaking to you. Now take like this fellow, S.D. Paul, yeah, he is going or walking or riding to Damascus in the olden days, and suddenly this big ball of white, the ball of light descends, and as Jesus standing in the ball of light, and he says, "Hey, why don't you lay off of my people and stop doing whatever you're redoing and all that," and he is very impressed, and he even blinded, and he falls down, and one thing and another, but anyway, he makes it somehow to Damascus. And there he starts a big campaign, and he talks about his experience and the big public relations thing, and he got the thing going, he got the church built, and the Judeo-Christian EIC came out of this, and bingo, and all the things that that go. with this, so they got something, yeah. Now suppose the same thing would happen, and this fellow, so is St. Paul say, is driving down on Route 128, driving down. Route 128 doesn't go to Damascus, it doesn't go to Damas, goes to go to. So then this fellow is driving under the influence driving, and suddenly this big ball of light descends in front of his windshield. And Jesus standing in front of him, and he gets very, very impressed, and his driving naturally gets kind of wobbly, and so sure enough there, a cop behind him, and he says, and gets him off to the side of the road, and he says, "Sir, may I have your license and registration and all that?" And this fellow is so impressed, and he keeps babbling something about Jesus and all that, and the cop says, "Well, you must be driving under the info, right?" So he arrests him and takes him in the station, Then what happens is that he comes to the station, and then they tell him, well, he still is under the influence, you see, so they call an ambulance and send him off to the mental hospital. So now the reception desk, they interview him, a very short interview, and the guy puts down in the logbook that the fellow came in with an acute psychotic or schizophrenic episode, those religious overtones that's it, and this is what we did to the miracle. So we took the miracle and we grounded that really to gray powder, so no one miracle's okay. Everybody is complaining that during the Bible times on every page of the Bible you have a miracle or two, and now no. Miracles this, what we redoing to the miracles we just flattening them. What is it that is evolving? And you talked about the nervous system evolving, right? But is there something else that is evolving that is able to be additive to this higher level of reality? We have this notion of the soul. Most people, talking about the soul, as a kind of non-physical thing, highly theoretical. And so when you go to church, you take this soul out of the closet and polish it up a little bit, and then you go to church. And you are one with your soul, then you come back and put back in the closet. Till next week, so that's about the idea of no normal person. Soul, but actually that's not the case. I mean, we do and have souls, but it's just the other way around. A soul has us, so that is that thing that evolves. The permanent, eternal thing is the soul, and a body is a kind of disposable thing that is, you use a body like a car for 880,000 miles, 0 miles, and you chunk it, and you get another one. So the driver is the soul who uses the body for a while, and then he runs it into the ground, and he gets another one sooner or later, and so the soul, which is experiencing evolution and not our personality, not our physical existences. That is, the soul is the repository of information that we gather during a lifetime. Well, I'll tell you, maybe we should draw another diagram. Physical bodies are here, and another physical body, and this is the physical level, Joe, and this is Jim and Sa, etc., now clearly on the phiz. This is the physical level. Now on this physical level, we are separate. You sit there and I sit here, and we all separate now. Let us draw another level. This level is slightly higher, and let's call this the level of the soul. There will be some mingling here. Let us draw this person as extending to practically infinity this way. Now look what happens at the physical level. We are separate. We re-separate, and there's this much distance between us. Let us say that on the soul level, this person extends this much, and the other person gets slightly mixed in with him. That is, the souls are in a way in touch with each other. Okay, they overlap these two lines. Now let us go now to a higher level, and let us call this, say, the level of the higher self, which is kind of a boss of that soul. What we find is that this fellow's higher self extends this much, and the other fellow's extends this much. There is more overlap between them, right? On the very highest level, which is the high spiritual level, we are basically overlapping completely. Everybody is overlapping everybody else. In other words, everything and everyone is everywhere. In other words, we have become omnipresent. This is the state of highly spiritual perfected beings, or gods you may call them, okay, and so that we exist on all of those simultaneous, but we not aware of that. In your view, then, if when we see each other separate entities, that as only seen on one plane of reality, correct? And so whether we like it or not, we all evolving towards godhood. But the purpose of evolution, it takes yon, so do and hold your breath. Is that the purpose of evolution naturally? Because at that point you start understanding how the system works, and one of the good things about the system is that the system wants to teach you about itself, mem. What does a good system? Yeah. What does it want to teach you? Well, if you are omnipresent and you all-knowing, that is the state, which the system wants you to be in because the system is an intelligence or information gathering system and is also freely distributing that information. In your view, yeah, we all started off somewhere a long time ago in which there was sort of undifferentiated matter which slowly millions and millions and millions of beyond evolved until a very complex organism that we now call a human being MH, and it has a nervous system which we at this particular point in time understand as being sensitive to certain levels of reality through our eyes, our ears, our nose, other sensory perception, and that as sort of what we call material ordinary reality that enables us to drive cars and do our work every day. However, there is an evolutionary movement that will continue to push us beyond where we are today, and the thing which is going to be pushed is our soul, and that at some point we will have these experiences of elevated consciousness in which higher realities are not only seen but lived, and ultimately we come into perfection whether we like it or not. Yeah. Can we speed that up by doing it? Yeah. Well, you use the meditative techniques which push the nervous system a lot faster than the normal evolutionary rate. Those techniques are very available, but you do and need to do anything it is going to happen anyway to happen. What a view, a very big, bright